Welcome in to Extreme Talk, presented by Complete Real Estate, where experience and integrity matter. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are a week, actually less than a week, um, less than a week away from the Jamboree. Actually, there's two Jamborees coming up this weekend. Of course, you'll have the annual one. I don't even know how long it's been going on, but the one over at Christian Community School. Um, and it used to be that one was just one night, and then they split it into two nights. So you'll have football on Friday night as well as Saturday night. I believe both of those kick off at 6, maybe. I'll have to double check those times, but um, so you'll have football up there, and then on Friday night, Franklin Christian Academy started hosting one last year, and so they'll have 3 or 4, I think it's 4 teams at that jamboree. And so a lot of football coming up this weekend, little preseason football. Got to catch some last night. I know some teams have been scrimmaging and having joint practices. I saw Riverside Christian and Freedom having a joint practice. Christian Community and Tennessee Heat had a scrimmage last night. And so it's cool to see, football's here. We made it through the off season. We finally got to the point that we needed to where we can start getting that football fix a little bit. Of course, today is day 2 of Championship Sunday, and so we will talk to a couple championship-winning coaches from last year rather. At 4:15, we'll have Coach Tim Humans from the Pack Panthers, and then at 4:45, we will have Coach Tim Johnson from Franklin Christian Academy. So looking forward to talking to both of those men. I mentioned Saturday, of course. Let me back up. On Wednesday, you have the second annual ACSC Media Day. And so Ezekiel, Evangel, Lighthouse, East Central, and Southern will all come together. I believe they're still having it at the Evangel Sports Complex. So they'll all come together and have the Media Day. And then on Saturday, the 5th, at 2 p.m., and I believe the ACSC Media Day will be on the ACSC YouTube channel. And then on Saturday the 5th at 2 p.m., you'll have the first ever SEEC Media Day, and that will be on the 8-Man Extreme YouTube channel right here. And so we'll talk to coaches and players from Freedom, Tennessee Heat, Franklin Classical, Sacred Heart, Tri-Cities, and Zion Christian. So looking forward to that. It'll be a lot of fun to get to talk to these coaches a little bit. Saturday, the SEC Media Day is going to be hosted by Spencer Tomset. Long time, used to be on board. I think he was with us for 5 years, and then moved on. He's come back to do a couple of things here or there. Last year, I think he did some conference championship games. He did nationals, and so he'll be hosting that event. And then not this Saturday, the next Saturday. Now games start next Friday. Not this Friday, next Friday the 11th. Next Saturday is the Black Bear Brawl up at Rocky Top Sports World. And you'll have 4 games that day. We'll be there for all 4 of them. At 10 a.m., you have a JV game between the, I think it's Cabarrus Stallions. And they will be taking on the Georgia Force JV squad. At 1 o'clock, you'll have the Pack Panthers taking on Lighthouse Homeschool. The Warriors. At 4 p.m., you'll have the Cabarrus Stallions varsity versus the Georgia Force varsity. And then at 7 p.m. for the nightcap, you'll have Evangel Christian and Cary Christian facing off against each other. So we'll be there for all 4 games that day. I believe they're going to do an opening ceremony of types, like a welcome kind of deal on Friday night. So we'll be up there for that as well. More than likely, we'll put that on our social media. And everybody be able to kind of have a kickoff to the season. Like I said, there are games on Friday night, and looking forward to seeing those games kick off. Maybe be able to catch 1 or 2 if they're being broadcasted. But like I mentioned last week, it was not an easy decision. But for those that haven't caught the show or haven't caught wind, we will not be on the road this year every week for game broadcasts. Just did not work out between lack of crew, lack of sponsors, just everything didn't come together the way it needed to, and so we'll be on the road every week. Of course, we'll still have Extreme Talk presented by Complete Real Estate, and then we will be doing a offensive and defensive player of the week presented by Fairlife Core Power Protein. Core Power wanted to jump right back in there and team up with us again, and super honored and blessed to have that partnership with them. So we'll be picking an offensive and defensive player of the week. We just finished designing the shirts last Thursday, I believe, or Friday. Just got all that finalized. So we'll have that sent to them, and we'll also have 3 cases, one of each flavor. I think it's chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry banana. So we'll have 3 cases of Core Power protein shake, protein drink, along with a really cool T-shirt. And so that'll be sent to them. And again, big thank you to Core Power for teaming up. Thank you to Complete Real Estate for powering Extreme Talk every single week. Just making it happen. So we'll still be around, but we'll do the Black Bear Brawl. We'll do some conference championship games. And then we'll be doing nationals in Florida, the NHSA National Tournament. And I believe that is the second weekend of November. And then we'll also be doing the Gatlinburg Rising Stars game and the All-American games, which traditionally that's been the Saturday before Christmas. Yeah, Saturday before Christmas. So whichever date that falls, let's see, that falls on the, let's see, probably the 16th, because the 23rd is only a couple days before Christmas, so it'll probably be the 16th. You know what? Let me double check that date. Make sure I'm telling you the correct date. But so we will not be on the road every week this season, and like I said, it wasn't an easy decision, but it's been 7 years every Friday being somewhere, but it was the best decision and the decision that needed to be made. So, anywho, let me get this date for the All-American games. It is the 16th. Okay, so the 14th through the 16th is the whole event. Yeah, 14th through the 16th is the whole event, and then the game will be on the 16th. So practice is on the 14th and 15th. But so we'll be up there for those games as well. Traditionally talk about the Jamboree on this Sunday or the Jamborees coming up. I believe it's Franklin Christian, Franklin Classical, Freedom Cowboys, and Lancaster Christian at the Jamboree at FCA on Friday night, because it's just a one night deal. Now those 3 teams were in it last year, and then Providence was in it last year. I believe Lancaster went to CCS's. And they may be going there Saturday. And I have not seen a list of the teams at the CCS Jamboree. I know the Tennessee Heat will be there. South Haven Christian is typically there. Innovation Academy will be there. First-year school out of Springfield, Tennessee. Right, literally 5 minutes down the road from South Haven. So a little bit of a Robertson County rival there. Battle for Springfield. That'll be a cool situation. Zion Christian will be there. I believe Classical is playing in that one as well on Saturday night, unless I'm mistaken. Trying to think who else would be in that Jamboree. Maybe, I don't think Tri-Cities is in it. I don't think Sacred Heart is in it. I know traditionally Sacred Heart has been, but I'm not 100% sure. So, but it will be we'll have some good football on Friday and Saturday night, and be fun to just kind of take that in and just get ready for the season. Like I said, games kick off next Friday night. There's a ton of them, some good ones, and then even next Saturday on the 12th, there's good games on top of the Black Bear Brawl. I know Tri-Cities Christian is going down to Orangeburg Christian in South Carolina to take them on. So a cool little crossover game there. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Real quick, want to run through the two coaches we had last week. Of course, we had Coach Tim Smith from Evangel Christian. Got a chance to talk to him, and then Coach Kyle Collins from the Freedom Cowboys. And so it was good to get a chance to talk to them. And again, what we're trying to do is just talk to them about their philosophies and the way they do things. Maybe see if there's a key to, maybe what's the secret ingredient to getting some championships. So, we'll talk about their philosophy, some methods, and just their overall approach to being able to get as far as they have over the last couple of years. Freedom, of course, winning the SEC, the inaugural SEC championship last year. Evangel got an ACSC championship. I think they hadn't won it since 2019, maybe. Yeah, 2019 was the last one. So, really, really cool to see them be able to get a championship there. While I'm waiting to get Coach Humans primed up, for those unfamiliar with Providence or with the Pack Panthers, full name Providence Athletic Club. But they are out of Columbia, South Carolina. If I can get them pulled up correctly. Nope. Wrong one. There we go. And I just want to run over real quick how they did last year to get you guys geared up for Coach Humans. So last year, 11-1 overall. The only loss coming in the first game of the season against Jefferson Davis Academy, one of the teams out of the SCISA, the other conference in South Carolina that has 8-man teams. And then from there, Pack just ran through the rest of their opponents. They played a home-and-home series with all the teams in their conference. Harvest Christian Academy out of Cope, Augusta Eagles out of Martinez, Georgia, Coastal Hurricanes out of Pembroke, Georgia, Orangeburg Christian out of Orangeburg, South Carolina. And they also played, I can't remember the name of this team, but it was a non-conference game. They did win it, though. I think it was the closest game they had. 36-26, all the other games, I believe. Trying to see who scored the most. I know the Coastal Hurricanes scored 22 when they played. I guess the Eagles scored 22. So very dominant performances from both of these in both of those games. And overall, Pack just kind of running through their conference. It's a little bit different for them this year, though. They have added a few more teams. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. When we did the show looking at the landscape of 8-man football in the South, SIFA have added several teams, and then you see Pack Panthers going out and getting, the game in the Black Bear Brawl. We'll talk to Coach Humans about that. But they will be playing Jefferson Davis Academy again. That's kind of their rivalry game. They picked up a game with Tri-Cities Christian. And then they'll also be playing Victory Christian out of North Augusta. And they have a varsity opponent. Not sure which one that is, but regardless, it'll be a tough season. So we'll go ahead and get Coach Humans on the phone. We'll get him dialed up here. There he is.
Hello.
I am joined by Coach Tim Humans from the Pack Panthers. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join me.
James, appreciate you having me on, brother. How you been?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Football's here. I'm doing a little bit better.
Great time of the year, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Coach, I'll jump right into it. Of course, you guys able to win a SIFA championship last year. Pretty dominant year in terms of you guys with the rest of the teams in your conference. I'll jump right into it. What are some of the things that you tried to talk to your guys about or instill in your guys going into the playoffs last year, knowing that you were playing teams that you had already beaten twice in that season?
Well, James, sometimes that's kind of hard to do. But the first thing you have to do is remind your team that anytime you put 8 guys against 8 other guys, anything can happen.
Absolutely.
We've been on both sides of that equation before. And anytime they don't believe that will be the one time that it will come up and strike them in the rear end.
Yes, sir.
Fortunately, the guys we have are pretty mature for their age, and they were able to grasp that concept early in the season. We've never been a program that's been able to go undefeated at any point in the history of our program, and so we get to taste the anxiety of loss at least once a year up until this point, and hopefully we can break that at some point in the future. So it's easier to remind the kids of that when they felt it in the year. And if you like the feeling of winning and you hate the feeling of losing, it's pretty easy to get them focused on winning and not take anyone lightly.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the way last season went, you would, you look at the winning in the conference, but backing up to that first game of the season, you mentioned that getting that taste of a loss. First game of the year, super close, super tight game with Jefferson Davis. How much of an impact did that have on the guys in terms of not wanting to replicate that feeling again?
Oh, it's a tremendous amount of it. Anytime you lose, you never want to have that feeling in your gut again. And then that we preach that to our kids. We also, it's important for us as coaches to make sure they understand that the only thing they've lost at that point is the possibility of going undefeated.
Right.
Every other goal is achievable at that point. But it's very important for them to at least know that's a possibility. And last year when we lost such a close game, it really lit a fire in their bellies for the rest of the season, not to feel it again. I think they did a good job throughout the rest of the season of maintaining their focus and, keeping everything in perspective and knowing that winning is important, but winning the right way is even more important.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I would almost think it's harder to teach that to guys because you can always teach guys how to win with grace, how to lose with grace, and hey, just put it behind you, let it go, learn from it, everything. But being able to win with grace and win big like you guys did, what were some of the key things that you wanted to get through to your guys about how to win with grace?
Well,
Especially with it being teenage boys who love to just the hormones are so high.
You're kidding me, right, James? No, these are just no. In all honesty, it goes back to this is something that all of our teams in our conference teach, and that's what I love about our conference members. We teach that we're a Christian-based conference to begin with, and so football is secondary to knowing the fact that we're all brothers in Christ. And at the end of the day, we have good relationships with the other teams in our conference. We have great respect for the coaches. We have great respect for the players. And we teach them from day one that we want you to, when the whistle blows, we want you to give 100%. Knock them on their butts. When the whistle stops the play, you help them up and you tell them Jesus loves you and that you'll be back on the next play. And if you can get that, if you can keep that in perspective,
yep,
it helps out not only in football but in life. And we'll get together with each team either before or after the game for a prayer. And a lot of times, we'll find ourselves hanging out at midfield talking to the other players that we've come to know over the years.
right.
And before I know it, the fans have already, parents have already started taking down everything post game. So it makes my job easier after the game is over.
There you go. There you go. Now, getting to play the teams in your conference, twice, and a couple teams you played them 3 times. As you played them the second time, maybe the third time, what were your guys able to learn about how other people, not just obviously you watch film and you try to learn from other teams, but what did they learn about other teams watching you and the feeling of, oh, well, they're ready for this because they've seen this already this season from the same guys. What was it like watching that progression in your guys and watching them grow in that way?
Well, the first thing it teaches them is that there's always a bull's head on your back. There's a mark. You're going to be the the team that everybody comes for. And you could have a situation where a team loses, goes on a long losing streak, but as long as they can beat you,
Yep.
they'll consider it a success. And we've been on the opposite end of that before as well. So it's important for them to keep that in perspective, and it's important for our players to know that we do have to vary things up. Now, this year, we've for the first time in the history of our program, we finally got to the point that we don't have to play teams twice unless we meet them in the playoffs.
Exactly.
So it's been a burden for us as coaches, because you feel like you have to hold a little back in the first game in order to be able to show them something new in the second game. But we've got some players who really have good football knowledge. If you look at some of our players, we're not going to overwhelm you with anybody who is 6'2" or 6'3" and weighs 240 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not going to be any tremendous athletic specimen. What we do have is some kids who love the game of football, and some who think about it very deeply. And they will come to us with ideas on how to vary up some of the plays we have, or some of the alignments, or some of the sets when we face another team. And we encourage that input. Players get a perspective on the field that we can't get even by watching film. And so that we rely on their input to tell us what we need to change when a game is over, so that we can give a little different look the second time around. But fortunately, this year we don't have to do that as much.
And I think that's so important because you see, you hear talk with the Kansas City Chiefs, and as much as I hate the Chiefs, but you hear talk about them, and to hear Pat, the show Quarterbacks on Netflix, I got a chance to watch it, and you hear Patrick Mahomes talking about how much input they have into drawing up plays or coming up with plays or talking about the game plan. And of course, the saying is, well, Coach Reed has 51% of the vote. But
Yep.
it's what you talked about. The players have that unique perspective on the field, or they're hearing things and seeing things that you might not from the other sideline. So I think that's very important. That's very interesting that you said that. It seems like a lot of winning, and I think Coach Tim Smith has said the kind of the same thing of where listen to your players sometimes, because especially your more experienced ones, your second, third year guys, they're going to pick up on things just from hearing things and from actually investing in the game.
Yeah, we've actually we have a standing rule. If we trust you to be our quarterback, then you've got the green light to audible out of a play. The only thing you have to, whether it fails or succeeds, we're not going to yell at you. You have to be able to explain two things if it fails when it comes to the sidelines. One, what did you see that made you audible out of it? And two, what did you see that made you audible into the play that you did? And if you can come to the sidelines and give us a rational explanation, 30 seconds after it happens, then you're well within your right to audible out of that play. And a lot of that has to do with over the years, like you said, Jan Slam is our quarterback this year, and we've been riding with him going back to his days on JV. Probably seems like 4 or 5 years now, and he's very mature for a quarterback. And there are times during a game when we'll send a play in, and he'll look at me and he'll give me the sign that he's waving it off, and I'll just give him the thumbs up, and you see something, roll with it. And so for the most part, it succeeds. The same thing on the defensive side. If we call a stunt and they see something, they've got the green light to call it off. Depending on an alignment, or if they see a weakness that we don't see, because we don't have the best view in the house, they do.
Exactly.
You've got to be able to trust your players. They're on the field.
Yep. Yeah, and you bringing up Jance and of course you got Clay and the other guys that have been there for 2-3 years, being able to go through not just winning the championship, but of course the 2 years ago losing the championship to the Greenville Hurricanes. Of course, we had the honor of being there, seeing the game. The guys that knew they were going to be starters the next year, for lack of a better term, that had to put a burr in their saddle, a little chip on their shoulder of going, hey, we cannot have this again.
We talk about that game off and on every season, or at least once.
Yeah.
Because we want them to, we don't dwell on it. We want them to be reminded of what it feels like to lose. And there were a lot of things that happened in that game leading up to it that created, it was we played poorly, we coached poorly. They had a fantastic game. We had beaten them once earlier in the season, so you basically had the same two teams matching up. And sometimes the stars just align, and they outplayed us in every facet of the game. And we all, it wasn't very Tim Tebow-esque after the LSU games, but we basically said this isn't going to happen again.
Yeah,
We may
yeah.
lose a game, but we're not going to lose a game like that. And that's our goal. And we do remind them of that, especially for the new kids who are coming in. But again, we don't dwell on it. We give our guys 48 hours, win or lose. You've got 48 hours to enjoy the wins. You've got 48 hours to sulk over the losses. But when those 40 hours are up, it's a new day, and we've got to find our new opponent and go face it.
Wow, that's generous. Yeah, I've heard of 24 hours. That's generous. 48. Wow, man. I
Well,
don't know.
it's South Carolina.
I don't know that I'd want 48 hours.
Hey, it's South Carolina. There's not a lot to do around here, so we,
That's
we give them the extra 24.
that's fair. That's fair. Hey, I want to talk about coming into this year and the opportunity you guys had to schedule some other teams out of state. Of course, last year you didn't get any chances to do that, but this
Yeah,
year you got the chance to that you guys are going to be playing in the Black Bear Brawl against Lighthouse Homeschool Warriors. You
yeah,
got a chance to schedule Tri Cities Christian over there over in East Tennessee. And of course, you guys do play. Let me back up. You do play out of state games because your conference has teams from Georgia and South Carolina. But an out of
correct.
conference game, with against other teams that have maybe a little bit different measuring stick. And
Sure.
then of course, you guys have the games with Jefferson Davis. Um, how important was it to you to get those games on the schedule? To where depending on what happens in the Black Bear Brawl, you can look at your guys and go, okay, here's where we're at. We have a long season ahead of us, but here's what we need to work on, or hey, I'm glad you guys have picked up on this, and this is something that we do really well.
Yeah, it is extremely important, and we tried to go out of our way to do that this year. We had our time down in Panama City, and uh, we enjoyed matching up against teams that we hadn't seen before. It's been difficult growing 8-man football in South Carolina. I think we've in this area, South Carolina and Georgia,
Yeah,
and I think we finally got got it taking roots as far as from away from the CISA programs.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, but being able to go, play the teams from Alabama, play some teams from Tennessee, possibly from North Carolina, and like you said, getting the measuring stick to see how we measure up against what they play. And not only that, it's just getting to play some new teams. Like I said, last year and in previous years, having to play the same team twice, we really, really put an emphasis on trying to grow our conference to the point that we didn't have to play teams twice. That in itself freed us up for some open dates to schedule these some out of state teams. Previously, when we played everybody twice, it left us with two or three openings on the schedule, and we've got a couple of teams here in the state that we traditionally play, and we like to have our one game a year against the SCISA program. It really didn't leave us the opportunity to schedule any out of town teams or out of
Right.
state teams. So I'm glad we were able to do that this year. I look forward to doing it in years to come. In fact, we're still trying to schedule one additional date. We had one cancellation on us. So if there's anybody out there looking for a game, look us up.
There you go. You heard it here. Now, I look at your schedule on Max Preps, and I noticed the your regular season ends October 20th, correct?
Well, it actually ends October 27th. That's one of our open dates. We
Gotcha.
we had a game scheduled that week, and that game is off. So, but our conference schedule ends on the 27th, and then we have two rounds of the playoffs.
Oh man, I was gonna ask you if you guys were gunning to try to go to Florida again.
You know what really killed us is we actually, as a conference, decided to. We originally had three rounds of playoffs, first and second, then championship weekend.
Right.
And in an effort to try to line up so that we could have the potential, or somebody could have the potential for our conference to go down to Florida, we cut it back to just 2 weeks, two rounds of playoffs, and then I found out that their date's different as well, and so unfortunately nobody will get to go this year. We're going to
Mm.
keep it at we're going to keep it at two rounds of playoffs,
Yeah.
and hopefully in the future, that's what we're gaming for. We like those postseason trips. They're fun.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's fun too to see everybody in Florida. See everybody come together in one place. The Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, all of them come together. It just and then what's on the line is a little bit different from the Black Bear Brawl. That's more of like a pride thing. On the line in Florida is a title. So
That's right.
the competitive juices, and you've been going all year. You have the respective champions coming into the tournament, or runners up, or however it is. If you're independent, it really the environment is just so next level. And you guys got a chance to go down there a couple years ago. You've experienced it. I'm sure it's something you guys would love to get back to, or even just to be able to send a team from your conference down there and have that kind of that bragging right situation.
Absolutely, man. We love the level of competition. We didn't fare very well when we went down a couple of years ago, but we do look forward to coming back to it, and hopefully grabbing a win or two down there and see where again you get to see where you stack up.
Exactly.
And you get a couple of games. It is a good team building exercise for the following year. Your team comes back a little closer knit, I think. And you come back with some good memories. And that's at the end of the day, we tell all of our players, you're going to play your last game of football at some time. Even the pros do. So the only thing you're going to have are your memories and your friendships. So you make the best of both of them. And so, a trip to Florida would definitely do that.
Absolutely. Now you got a chance to coach in the All American, or I believe it was the All American, right? Or was it the Rising
Yes,
Stars?
yeah.
Okay.
No, it's All American.
All American game last year, and of course you guys had some players down there in Gatlinburg for that event. Uh, of course, you go through the whole season. You have your guys, you have your system, and then going into that event, it's a very limited time that you have to kind of install something or get the guys on the same path, on the same same wavelength. But being able to have your guys down there to help you communicate that's got to be so crucial. But then also just to see how your ideas play out with maybe a different players of different skill types than what you had all year. That's got to be a really cool environment.
It is. First of all, it's a cool environment for the kids, and just to be able to interact with the kids from the different programs, it's a lot of fun. And a lot of players we would never see in a game just because of the distance or everything. That's a lot of fun. I'll be completely honest and upfront with you. Anytime they ask us to coach, I volunteer only for defense because defense is a lot easier to install in the short time frame.
Absolutely.
I would not take on and trying to install an offense. I have a hard enough time installing an offense for 2 months, much less 2 practices. But it is a great experience. It really is. We encourage our players that and winning the conference championships are the 2 things we point our guys toward from day one. And we tell them if they're not worthy, we're not going to submit their names. But that if they get there, not only is it a point of pride for them and something that no one can take away from them, they will actually be able to play in a game that has, in an essence, high school games when you play the run of the mill games throughout the season, you kind of will lose memory of what happened from game to game. I think those players will probably remember every single game or every single play that they played up in Gatlinburg at the All-American game and or the Rising Stars game as well.
Now, the last couple of years, you guys have been able to send players up, and when those players come back, the underclassmen that were able to play in it, when they come back for the next year, being able to be around some of those other guys that they wouldn't see on a regular basis, or maybe that they've seen play and they go, man, I really want to talk to this guy. How awesome is it to see them implement even just little things into their game the next year that make you go, oh, this guy took it up another level.
It is. Well, they get 2 benefits. They get to learn from the other players and see their reaction and see a play. If they consider themselves to be an elite player at our level in our conference, then at a minimum they're going to be matched up with 7 other elite players on their side of the ball and 8 on the other side. And so it just ramps up that level of enthusiasm and effort that you have to bring to each play that you're in. But not only that, but they get to learn from an entirely different set of coaches. And it's one thing to learn from the same coach year after year after year, or practice after practice. But if you go into the All American weekend, you've got coaches from 2, 3, 4 different staffs on one team, and when those guys are on the same page, preaching the same subject matter to the kids, I think it reinforces within the underclassmen that, okay, I need to listen to what's being taught, and when they come back and they transfer that to the even younger players, or the ones that weren't able to make the game, it has a huge impact. It's been huge in the development of our program. Not only does it give our players a goal to shoot for, but I think our players come back better prepared for the next year, and with a renewed sense of confidence, which is always good.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on this because it's been a conversation over the last couple of years. As 8-man grows, more teams are playing. Alabama has 3 conferences in it, plus a team in a conference in Tennessee. Tennessee basically has 2 conferences. All over the place. It's growing. But for SIFA, having teams in Georgia and South Carolina, and then you have SCISA also in South Carolina. In terms of champions, are they conference champions? Are they state champions? And then if the SIFA champion is in South Carolina, like you guys, and you've got the SCISA champion, how do you guys sort that out?
Well,
or is it just based on classification?
It's really based on classification. SCISA is it's the what I call the South Carolina High School League version of private schools.
Right.
And so it's a situation where, to this point, they will only allow teams in that play all of their sports in SCISA, and then you have to meet certain requirements, one of which is a brick and mortar building, which takes away all of the homeschool teams.
Yeah.
You can't play those at all, and it'll take away a lot of the teams that are in our conference, the smaller Christian schools, because they play in another athletic league called SCACS, which is South Carolina Association of Christian Schools. So there really isn't a way for us to have a state championship per se. We'd be happy to do it if SCISA would be willing to, but they typically have the way they do their scheduling. They give each school one open date, which is week 0, which is the one we usually fill with Jefferson Davis. And then after that, their schedules are full through November. And then by that time, most of the schools are already rolling into basketball, and they're not interested in playing another game. Unfortunately, it would be fun. It really would be.
Good old basketball. Gotta love it.
You gotta hate it.
Yeah, I know. Well, and I was gonna say, until you mentioned basketball, I was gonna say, well, it sounds like we need to have a champion versus champion, undisputed game. But
well, yeah, and we've tried. I've put it out there to some of the SCISA coaches, even about the All-American game and Rising Stars game and what they're doing up at Rocky Top. And Heathwood Hall sends representatives up there. The last few years I've been there, they've been there, and they're a SCISA team.
Yeah.
But there are very few SCISA programs that send representatives. And I think that's sad. I really challenge them to step it up when it comes to getting their players the postseason recognition they deserve.
Oh, absolutely.
And part of that, if they want to get together and have a championship game, we'd be happy to do it.
Well, and it's as much growth as left to have. It is cool to see how far it's come, even in just the last 5 years. It's exponential, but.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, Coach, last question before I let you go. Obviously, with winning the championship last year, and I know teams do it. I asked the coaches last week. Team motto, team phrase, team word. Around what time of the season do you come up with it? What do you use as your inspiration, or is there a trend to your inspiration? And what's the word for this year or phrase for this year?
First of all, there's no method to the madness. We let it develop itself, basically.
Yeah.
Last year, it came in either game 2 or game 3. One of our players was actually headed to the locker room, and he passed some of the opposing players, and he heard them say, "Well, that team can't beat us because they're too small." And he came over to our team and relayed that message, and that's all it took. And so that was our motto last year, was too small. and we actually got that printed on the top of the rings we got after the conference championship last year,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
which is good, because if you can keep the perspective of the fact that you're not unbeatable, that there's somebody out there that's bigger and that's better, and that you have to play at your best all the time in order to stay at the top. That's a good lesson to learn, whether it's in life, in football, or in business, or just being, a good father and a good husband. You got to be at the top of your game all the time.
Yep, I feel like it's kind of an oxymoron, but I feel like you have to keep that good chip on your shoulder of, always not just not looking behind you, but going, always setting a goal for yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. But when it comes to a motto, we will let that take care of itself. The players will usually develop one as it goes on, and that last year took care of itself rather quickly.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join me. It's been fun talking and looking forward to seeing you guys this season, seeing you guys next Saturday at the Black Bear Brawl against Lighthouse Homeschool. And we'll see how this season plays out, Coach. I appreciate you.
Thank you, James. Thank you for all you do for 8-man football.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. We'll see you.
Take care. All righty.
All right.
Bye bye.
That's Coach Tim Humans from the Pack Panthers. Good conversation. Love getting to talk to him, and again, love seeing the growth of the conference, them being able to play some out of state teams, and the guy they've sent several guys to Gatlinburg over the last couple years. Um, Hopefully they can make it back to Florida at some point. I think the last time they were down there was 2019, maybe 2020. One of the two. You know what? Let's find out real quick. Because I remember them being, I think it was 2019, because I think it was the first year that we got a chance to go to Florida and broadcast those games. Of course, we broadcast in 2018, but it wasn't down there. Yeah, 2019, they got a chance to go down to Florida. They played Southern Prep and the Freedom Cowboys, and weren't able to come away with a win, but it was a good experience for those players. And I believe the players that played in that, I believe they would have if they were freshmen that year, they would have graduated last year. So always good to talk to Coach Humans, and of course he's one of the coaches typically down there in Gatlinburg for the All-American games. I believe he's been down there a couple times. So just a good example, and always fun to get a chance. I don't think we got a chance to broadcast any of their games last season, but it'll be fun to get to see them this upcoming season. I'm going to get some info loaded up. And let's go ahead and get Coach Johnson on the phone.
Hello.
Joining me now is the head coach of Franklin Christian Academy. He's Coach Tim Johnson. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join me.
Oh, glad to do it. Glad to do it.
I'll jump right into it. Obviously, last year we're doing a Championship Sunday series and been able to talk to some coaches that won titles over the last couple of years. And you guys were able to win the title last year. Very dominant season for you guys, especially in conference. But going throughout the year and some of the bigger wins that you guys were able to have, I've asked every coach this: what were one of the key things that you tried to, or some of the key things you tried to instill in your guys or teach your guys about, not taking the next team lightly, or being able to learn from a game, whether it was a win or a loss?
Right. That's a good question. It's something you go through every season, just constantly evaluating and reevaluating. And we were blessed last year to have a good group of senior guys that have been in the program for 2, 3, 4 years, and so they really understood the culture we've been trying to build and standard we set as far as practice and preparation, and so there's every season kind of has its turning points and its big games. I thought right off the bat playing CCS and playing well in an opening game against a quality opponent. I know the score didn't indicate that, but I knew they were a lot better than what that opening game indicated. And sure enough, by the end of the season, Coach Flanders had them playing really well, and there was a much more competitive game in the playoffs.
Oh yeah. Now you guys, as the season went on, racking up, the wins and being able to beat some conference opponents, you rolled into Huntsville to take on Freedom, and you guys sitting there unbeaten. They were unbeaten as well, and I know the score didn't go the way that maybe you guys wanted it to. And you mentioned a turning point and CCS being that turning point, but in terms of that Freedom game, how important was that for the guys to kind of recalibrate maybe, or for you guys to be able to look at them and go, hey, okay, now we know we got some work to do, or we have a couple areas to adjust. How important was that?
Oh yeah, yeah, I love playing Freedom because they're always well coached and play hard, and you know you're going to get a really tough game from them. And actually, I might be wrong, but I believe the week before we had because we had film study. I think they played Evangel the week before, so I think they actually had
Let me look at that because I got their
yeah,
schedule pulled up. Yeah, they played Evangel the week before.
and you know they had uh, obviously a very good Evangel team, always a tough game as well.
Oh yeah.
Um, and and so that had sharpened them the week before. That no doubt, I'm sure the coaches were able to use that game to get their attention and have a good week of practice and in preparation for us. And we were kind of a good opponent to play to kind of regain their status there that next week. So they had a lot of motivation going into that game. On the flip side, we had I think Mercy ruled every opponent up to that point, and our guys were practicing hard and playing hard, but we literally had our starters had literally not played a full game yet. I think we'd been playing probably at best maybe a half and a quarter
Yeah.
before the mercy rule would kick in, and so a lot of our guys just really had not had to grind out a whole game and pay attention to the little things that good teams sometimes can present to you. And so it was a tremendous game for us as far as learning, and our guys handled it well. We give Freedom all the credit there. They just played better that night and had a good team. And I just got out coached, and that sharpens us all. And from that point on, I think our guys really honed in on the details that it takes to win against good quality teams.
I think that's something that a lot of people underestimate about teams who, especially halfway through the season, they're unbeaten. And Freedom, Coach Kyle Collins has mentioned this about Freedom. Coach Tim Smith from Evangel, these other teams that are at the top, unbeaten. We just got a chance to talk to Coach Tim Humans. That the fact that when you are rolling through the season and you hit the mercy rule and you're the positive, hey, you're able to give your younger guys experience that will come in handy down the road, but you're not able to let your starters play an entire game. Or you could, but out of sportsmanship you don't. And so your
Right.
guys don't have that experience of playing a full game, and then you go through practice and you try to do your best to replicate that. But like you mentioned, going into that Freedom game, your guys had to do that, and then the next week they had to turn right back around and do the same thing against a tough Providence team. Um, Going into that Providence game, coming out of the Freedom game, it seems like your guys were a lot more focused going into that not a lot more focused. Let me rephrase that. It seems like they had a little bit of a wake up call maybe, and maybe I'm mistaken, but from your side, a little bit of a wake up call going into Providence because they came out and that was a tough game as well.
No doubt, no doubt. Coach Ferguson over at Providence, he's of course been building that program, and they jumped to 11 man this year, and they're going to do a great job over there. And um, we knew that would be a pivotal game as far as playoff position and all those things, and so uh, it was really a blessing in disguise. You always hope you're on the right side of the scoreboard when the clock runs out, but it was a blessing in disguise to play Freedom um, the week before and really uh, give our guys a chance to reassess and give our coaches a chance to reassess and look at some things we can do better. I really thought maybe overall that PCA that game, the regular season game against PCA, may have been the game we played best in all year long, to be honest.
Well, and you guys had to bring your A game with the kind of season the Providence was having. Of course, they had a tough game with Freedom early in the year too. So you guys had to bring it that game. So skipping a little bit further into the season, going to the playoffs, you guys played Christian Community again, and then you played Providence again for the title. But playing both of those teams the second time around, were your guys able to maybe notice something that you guys could do differently, or you coaches doing it differently? How do you manage playing the same team twice, and the second time just obviously there's stuff that worked in the first game, and coaches are going to adjust to that. So how did you guys go about either doing the same things or maybe doing something new, maybe tweaking something? How'd you guys go about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, we really just what you said, having a few wrinkles off the things that had worked in the previous games, and that we had, by the time you get to that point in the season, your opponent probably has multiple films on you, so they know what you do.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
have a good idea of what your bread and butter is, and then even some of the wrinkles off the bread and butter, right?
Oh yeah.
So then you have to find a wrinkle off the wrinkle sometimes, or put in, a little scheme that whether it's something in special teams you pick up on, or something in offensive defensive scheme, whatever it is, that it could be a schematic matchup, it could be a personnel matchup that you like, whatever it is, you're really searching at that point, and of course, Coach Ferguson and Coach Flanders, they do a really good job doing the same thing. So it was I was proud of our guys, proud of the way they handled it, really handled the season in a very mature way. And we had great leadership, and we're just trying to figure out, still working on filling those shoes for this season.
Now, when you guys have the kind of season that you did last year, as you go along, and of course you guys able to broadcast your games every week, um, and those games go private afterwards, but they are live broadcasts. And there's an opportunity for an opponent maybe down the road to be able to see it. Do you like that kind of challenge that comes with, what, other guys may be able to, a lot of coaches like to swap film, and so okay, this guy has film, this guy, but then being able to broadcast your games and everyone, can kind of watch it live in time, in real time. Do you like the challenge that comes with, hey, you know what, it doesn't matter what the other team has, we just have to go out there and do our job?
Right, exactly. There's pluses and minuses to that. I look at the grandparents, say, or other family or friends who can't make it to the game for one reason or another, or live out of town, and they want to see their grandchild play or whatnot. That's and really just helping market our program.
Yeah, absolutely.
It I think the pluses outweigh the minuses as far as that goes, and it's fun for our guys, obviously, to have games broadcast and be able to go back and look at those. So, um, yeah, it might give a slight advantage to our opponents, but we all of the coaches are good about swapping film as we go into the season, and so you're going to have a good idea of what folks do no matter what, and I
Right.
figure also it kind of gets to the point where um, I'm okay with just flooding the other coach with uh with film, because then then it gets down to maybe paralysis by analysis,
Yeah, yeah.
because we do quite a bit, especially our offensive scheme. We're pretty multiple, so if you're trying to break us down, that means maybe you're getting less reps on the field on what we're trying to beat you with. So
Well, yeah,
that's
yeah. You
it
talked
works both
about the
ways.
wrinkles on the wrinkles. If you're just showing them the bread and butter and maybe a wrinkle, now you can throw that other wrinkle in there, and they're not ready for that.
Right, exactly. So it's always that gamesmanship going on between coaches,
Oh
which is
yeah,
part of what makes coaching fun.
absolutely. Now your guys last year, especially some of the seniors, and even some of the juniors that were on the 2020 team that was able to win the title. And then in 21, the season didn't quite go the way you wanted it to, came up just a hair short. Going into last year, what level was the motivation from those guys where they've experienced winning it and they've experienced not winning it, and the balance of just having both of those experiences? How crucial and valuable was that, having those guys?
Sure. Yeah, we really could use that as a motivational factor because I think a lot of the players that we had coming back looked back on their previous season that Grace Baptist beat us in the semifinal and realized, hey, just a little bit more focus, a little bit harder, more effort here and there, a little bit more attention to detail, and we win that game. And all the credit, of course, goes to Coach Ateka and his bunch down at Grace Baptist. They had a tremendous season and did a great job. Um,
Oh, that was a
but
special team for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. And and last year it flipped, and that's the kind of players and season we had. We got two guys going to play for Berry College, and one is a preferred walk on at Texas A&M, which just getting a preferred walk on invite to SEC school is a big deal. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so we guys like that, like Blake Bunton, who's at A&M, and Isaiah Kimbrough, who played defensive end and tight end for us, who's now going to play for Barry, and Sam Oberhausen, who was our running back and gained over 1,000 yards last year. Um, you know, Obviously it helps. Talent helps coaches look pretty good, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But last year was I said it told many people it's a great combination. Some years you have some really talented kids, but the work ethic or the attitudes and leadership's not quite there. Some years you have kids who have great attitude and great leadership, but maybe just a little short end on the talent. And last year was one of those special seasons where really that team had both. Um, had a great attitude, great work ethic, very like to compete in practice, like to compete on Friday nights, but then also um, we're a really high character bunch with some talent.
Now coming into this season and losing, you mentioned losing Blake and Sam and Isaiah and some of the other guys maybe to graduation. Coming into this season, you guys were able to not just have your conference schedule, but you were able to schedule a team like Evangel, who is kind of the I don't want to say the bar, but they're one of the teams that you go, either coaches shy away from them, or they go, hey, you know what, we embrace the challenge of a team like that. Was it important to get a team like that on your schedule to where it feels like when you go through a season, you need that one game that is really going to help you guys, and you guys have it placed perfectly, in my opinion, right before the real stretch of the last couple games of the season and the playoffs to kind of help your guys recalibrate a little bit. Am I off base, or is that pretty
No,
close?
no, I'd say you're right on target right there. Playing those teams um, do nothing but just help get you better. You go out there and compete your tail off, and you hope to knock them off. But it's a quality program that's been doing it right for a long time, and so getting to play them uh, should make not just us better for this season and the outcome we have this season, but in the future, it's a like you said, they set a pretty high bar. So we hope our program's getting up there with it.
Now, being able to host them at your place instead of you guys making the drive to Alabama, it's got to help that situation a little bit.
I'm good either way. I really enjoy the trips. To be honest, I've always enjoyed taking the guys on an away trip. It's just part of the high school experience
Yeah.
that kids will reflect back on, and they'll tell stories about. Hey, you remember that time we went down to Evangel? We went to Freedom, or you name it. Um, and then of course all the conference games that we get to go to. It's unique environments wherever you play, but of course we think we got a pretty special environment there at FCA with our field and with the setup way it is now. It's a pretty cool environment to play high school football in.
Oh, absolutely. Now, you guys, last year with the way that the season went, and maybe even a couple years ago, of course, the talk is, would we see FCA in Florida at the national tournaments? And last year didn't quite work out for you guys to make it down there. Is that maybe on the goals board for your guys this year, depending on how the season goes? Of course, you don't want to look too far ahead, but is that something that even just you coaches in the back of your mind go, you know what? Let's just see what happens. Like I said, you don't want to look too far ahead.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of where we are. We evaluate that at the end of each season. Our first and foremost goal easily is for us is just to win our league and win the state championship in our league. And beyond that is just uh, kind of the whatever additional things we can do. We looked at it last year, considered it, just for a number of reasons. It wasn't a good thing. One issue I have with that is we have a lot of our kids who go on to play basketball, and by the end of our season, we're getting cranked up pretty heavily into basketball season,
Yeah.
and it's always evaluating that and saying, okay, well, how much are we hurting the basketball team by holding on to these guys for another week or two or whatever it is. And so, there's a lot of considerations along those lines and what's healthy. It's not like 11 man where you necessarily always have 50, 60, 70 kids out there. It's a long season for an 8-man program already. If you're playing 9, 10, maybe 11 games, if you're fortunate enough to get into the state championship game. And so depth, your first and foremost concern is always the health and well-being of your players.
Yeah.
And so having that extra time and practice from a just experience standpoint, that's great. But all the factors, that's something we'll just have to consider when that time rolls around.
Did you have any players last year that you could tell they really wanted to make it, and then kind of reevaluated everything, or was that kind of a consensus with the players too? Of hey, you know what, we've done what our main goal was for this year. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah, I think at the end of the year there was a sense of we've accomplished our goal. I think
Yeah, yeah.
I think it would have just been a fun thing to do one more thing. And like I said, we strongly considered it. There was a couple of conflicts that I think made it was kind of deal breakers for us to being able to do it. I can't remember what it was at this time, but I think as far as our guys are concerned, you win a championship. There's a sense of a reaching your goal, height of accomplishment, and that's the sense we had at the end of our state championship game.
Um, I know you addressed it at the championship in 2020, and obviously it's been a conversation over the last couple years, but I want to get your thoughts on it, and your take on it. A couple years later down the road, of course, two conferences in Tennessee. You've got some independent teams. How do you is it based on classification, or how do you determine the difference between a conference champion and a state champion?
Well, for me, and it's nothing against any of those other groups or leagues or any whatever other we have an organization, we have a league, just like TSSAA.
Yeah.
If there's an independent school and then T or an independent 11-man program in Tennessee, that's fine and good. They can have their own independent league and they go win the state championships in their league. In Tennessee, they'll win their the TSSAA championships in 11-man. They declared the state champions. So, it's whatever organization you buy into, and we bought into the TSIAA, and that's at the end of the year our trophy says state champions on it, and that's our goal, and that's what we're buying into. If we switched and went to the other league, and that was the league our school was committed to, then if that was our pinnacle, and that was a state championship that they played for, then we'd say the same thing. It's not any disrespect to anybody else. That's just the organization we in, and that's what we play for.
I've gotten a chance to ask other coaches this, and like Coach Humans, I asked him earlier, but team motto, team word, team phrase, whatever a team uses on their shirts, and kind of as motivation. Is there a method to the madness for you guys picking one out, or does it just come with time? And then is there kind of a time that you try that it kind of works out that you have it by? How does that come about? Because it feels like, especially in a year where you win a championship, that word kind of becomes iconic, in terms of we had this word or phrase and then we won a title.
Right. Every year is special and unique along those lines. We don't have a particular creed that's been established at FCA at this point, other than that we are the Franklin Christian Academy, and as a Christian school, what we try to do is glorify God and His kingdom first and foremost, and humble ourselves to the opportunity that He gives us, and give our utmost. And that's always going to be our theme and ultimate goal. And what I tell the guys is, the biggest win is when they walk across that stage and get their diploma, and a few years later they're coming back with their college degree, and beyond that, coming back with their wife and kids. That's the real big win, as far as I'm concerned. But we do have some good kids that really jump in there and develop a unique personality for each team. And I think this year's seniors, I'm really proud of them. They're setting a great tone so far.
Last question before I let you go, and again, I appreciate you jumping on with me.
Absolutely.
The championship, you guys able to win it last year, and of course, not everyone were seniors, so you got guys coming back. But going into this season, and I may have asked it a little bit differently earlier, but going into the season, those guys, how do you instill in them or communicate to them that the accomplishments last year don't mean anything for this year? Of course, it was great, but I was talking to Coach Tim Smith from Evangel last week, and
Mhm.
his standpoint was, hey, last year was great, but that trophy's going to sit on the shelf. It doesn't mean anything for this year. How do you communicate that to your guys, or what's the process like to get them ready for this year?
Well, this is a great year in a couple of aspects, and we have some key players coming back. Of course, our quarterback Nathan Ritchie, was a tremendous quarterback last year, and he's going to build on that this year. Um, got a great little running back and slot receiver, defensive back, Caleb Lee,
Yep.
uh, Daniel Francis, who started since his freshman year, and up front on defense and offensive line. So we have some key components that have been in the program for a while as far as our personnel goes, but also we have quite a few new faces, either coming up from their eighth grade or freshman year, that's part of the program now, and those kids are hungry. They really, they're going to experience it at a whole nother level.
Oh yeah.
um, so they're gonna they're gonna be thrown into the fire some at a higher level, and so that's that's new to them. Even if they were part of the team as a young player last year, um, it's one thing to be thrown in there when it's cleanup time. It's a whole different aspect when the game's on the line and your number's being called.
Oh yeah.
So I think there's the excitement and energy that comes along with that. That renews the motivation and the goals, and then um, again, I'm counting on the senior leadership maturing, and I think even a couple of the seniors who's been in the program since freshman year, they pointed out, hey, we don't want to be like it was 2 years ago, where
Yep.
we didn't have the edge that we needed. And I've seen throughout the offseason, that's where it really starts. Throughout the offseason, I've seen a good leadership and a strong edge. We've got a lot of new faces that came in this year, and so it's always fun as a coach, just go out there and see how they perform on game night, because you don't know until that horn sounds, and we're kicking it off.
Yes, sir. Well, I look forward to seeing what you guys do. Of course, you got the Jamboree coming up Friday night, and then kick off the season here in the next couple weeks. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on with me, and good luck this season. Looking forward to seeing what you guys do.
Well, I really appreciate all you guys do to help give these high school kids some more opportunities to be seen, and just market our Beat Man Football League, no matter where it is and who it is. I really appreciate what you guys do, James.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for coming on, and good luck this season.
Thank you. Bye
All
bye.
right. Yes, sir. That's Coach Tim Johnson from Franklin Christian Academy. Good to get a chance to talk to him, and of course the defending TISAA conference champs. So there you go. Well, that'll just about do it. Again, I just want to recap for folks that weren't on in the first part of the show. Couple announcements to run through. This Wednesday at 10 a.m., I believe, over on the ACSC YouTube channel, you'll have the second annual ACSC Media Day, and you'll hear from the coaches and teams from the players there. On Saturday, the 5th at 2 p.m., you'll have the first ever SEEC Media Day. You'll hear from coaches and players there, and that will be right here on the 8 Man Extreme YouTube channel. And then on Friday night, you've got a jamboree at Franklin Christian Academy and Christian Community School, respectively, both of them. On Saturday night, jamboree moves to just CCS, and so you'll get a chance to catch some football down there. And then, mentioned it, 2 weeks from this Friday, football kicks off. There's games kicking off. And then 2 weeks or a week from this Saturday, the Black Bear Brawl, the Gatlinburg Black Bear Brawl there at Rocky Top Sports World. It's going to be a lot of fun. Football is here. Let's go have some fun. Let's make the most of it. Thank you so much for tuning in to Extreme Talk, presented by Complete Real Estate, where integrity and experience matter. We'll see you next Sunday. We'll recap the jamborees. We'll look forward to the first week of the 8-man football season. See ya.